Hello, today we're going to look at a warm-up exercise. This is going to involve some sweep picking and some alternate picking. And the idea here is to warm up both hands with just a quick, easy riff, which you can loop over and over. And then once you've been through this a few times, you'll be able to move on to more technical licks, play a bit faster, and do things that involve wider stretches without injuring your hand. So, here goes. Okay, so for this warm-up, we're going to start with a B minor arpeggio. And we're going to start at the top of the arpeggio on the 14th fret of the E string. This is the fifth of the chord that we're arpeggiating. So, we're going to descend across 5 strings like this. So we've got the 14th fret E string, pulling off to the 10th fret. Then we're going to play the 12th fret B string, the 11th fret G string, the 12th fret D string, and then the 14th fret of the A string. So altogether it sounds like this. Now at this point, if we were going to loop this arpeggio, we could add a fifth to the bass to get the second inversion of this arpeggio, and then we could go back up again. So we would play something like this. So that fifth is at the 9th fret of the A string. Now, instead of that, for this warm-up, we're just going to descend the arpeggio once, and then we are going to play that fifth, but we're now going to look at this in the context of the key that we're in. Okay, so next we're going to ascend through a mode, but in order to know which mode to ascend through, we need to think about what key we're in. So we've just played a B minor arpeggio, and since we're playing a minor triad, the B minor could be either the 2 chord, the 3 chord, or the 6 chord in air from the major scale. So those are the 3 chords within the major scale which give you a minor triad rather than a major or a diminished triad. So we can think of this as either B natural minor or the B Aeolian mode, or rather the arpeggio could be derived from the B Aeolian mode, or it could be from B Dorian or B Phrygian. So if we think of it as B Dorian, then that would make it a 2 chord, B Phrygian would make it the 3 chord, and B Aeolian would make it the 6 chord. So I'm going to think of it in terms of the 6 chord, and so what that means is we've basically taken the B minor arpeggio from the Aeolian mode or the natural minor mode. So if we think of this as being in the key of B minor, the relative major to that is D major. So we're basically in the key of D major. Now, if we think about where we ended the arpeggio, we ended on the note B here at the 14th fret, and as I said, we could then play the 5th in the bass to make this an inversion. So, if we move to the 5th here on the 9th fret of the A string, but instead of then going back up the arpeggio and playing the inversion, we will just play a mode from this point. So if we think of B as being the root note of the Aeolian mode, that would be the 6th note of the major scale, of the D major scale. So we can look at this and say, well, if B is the Aeolian mode, then the Mixolydian mode would be here on the note A, starting from the note A. And if we go back another whole tone, we get G, and that would be our Lydian mode. So we're going backwards through the modes. And the mode before Lydian is Phrygian. So that's a semitone before. So if we go back from the G to the F sharp, we get F sharp Phrygian. So basically, this is a long-winded way of saying that in the key of B minor, we can play a B minor scale, or we can play an F sharp Phrygian scale. Now, since we've ended our arpeggio here and we're in a good place to get the F sharp with our index finger, we can then ascend through F sharp Phrygian and since we're going from the A string all the way up to the E string, the F sharp Phrygian mode actually ends on the note F sharp on the E string at the 14th fret, which is where we started our arpeggio. So this means it makes it very easy to loop around and round between the two. So we can descend the B minor arpeggio and then ascend F sharp Phrygian. And we can just go around and round like that. So let's have a quick look at F sharp Phrygian and how to play it. So we're going to ascend from the A string through the F sharp Phrygian mode. Now, because we've got the root note on the A string, this mode's only going to go across 5 strings. So if you're familiar with the 3-note per string mode shapes, but you've learned them starting from the 6th string, the low E, then this shape might look more like the Locrian mode than the Phrygian mode, and that's because if you were to extend this down, if we descend the mode, because I'm ending here on the F sharp, we've got the F sharp Phrygian mode, but if we extended this down onto the E string, we could add those notes, and this would then become the what is that, C sharp Locrian. Now bear in mind, when you're playing modes, it's not so much the position you play them in or the pattern that you use, it's how you resolve the mode. So all we're doing is ascending through it, so it doesn't really matter which mode we call it as long as we're in the right key. But if you were to turn this into something more musical and you wanted this to sound like the Phrygian mode, then you would need to make sure you were highlighting the fact that we've got F sharp as the root, and also highlighting some of the notes that make Phrygian unique compared to the other minor scales. We'll go into that more in other lessons, so I won't spend too much time on it now. So what we're going to do is from the 9th fret, A string, we've got F sharp, and the Phrygian mode has a minor second and a minor third. So we're going to play 9, 10, 12, and then on the next string it's going to be 9, 11, 12, then 9, 11, 12 again on the next string, which is the G. Then moving up to the B string, we play, we're going up a half step to the 10th fret, and it's going to be 10, 12, 14, and same again on the E string, 10, 12, 14. So all together, we get this. And as I said, you can then loop these together. Now, because we're using all 4 fingers and a combination of different techniques with our picking hand, this is a great way to warm up both hands at the same time. If you wanted to work on your legato technique, you could also use just hammer-ons for the modal part. So you would sweep the arpeggio and then only pick the first note of each string when we go up. So it would be... So once you get the hang of this, you can start to speed it up a bit, although since we're using it as a warm-up, you're not going to want to blaze through it. You can do as a way of practicing the techniques once you've warmed up, but to begin with, just go through it quite slowly. And then you can get a bit faster as you go along. Okay, so once you get the hang of this, you can actually start to apply this to other techniques. So, sorry, not other techniques, but other arpeggios and other modes. So, for example, if we stay in the same key, we could move up from the B minor to the D major arpeggio. And if we do the same thing again by putting the 5th in the bass, that lands us on the 12th fret of the A string. Now the 12th fret of the A string is obviously the note A, and in relation to D major, we have A mixolydian. So we could play a mixolydian scale starting from the note A on the 12th fret. So... And again, this lands us right where we want to be to start the D major arpeggio. So that would sound something like this. And again, you can loop it round and round. So not only will this act as a good warm-up, but it will also help you to practice some of the basic 5-string arpeggio shapes and also help you to get the hang of the modes and visualize them over the fretboard, since we're playing them from a 5th string root instead of the usual 6th string root. So if we just go back to that mixolydian mode quickly. If we were to extend that down again, the way we did with the other one, we would go onto the E string, and we could actually turn this into an E Dorian mode. So, now, again, which mode it sounds like is going to depend on how you use it in a musical context. When we're literally just ascending up the scale, it's not really going to have the sound of the mixolydian mode or the Dorian mode or whichever one. But we're just naming them based on what the root note is. So if you had a 7-string, you could go further and instead of E Dorian, you could then bring it down even further. And you would get B minor. And then if you have an 8th string, you could keep going and we would end up back in F sharp Phrygian. So that's something to keep in mind. Try out different arpeggios. You can move them up and down the neck, play them in any key you want, and then just figure out where a mode can be played. So usually whichever is the 5th of the arpeggio, if you play that in the bass, that's going to be a good place to start the modal run, which will end you in the right place to loop back into the same arpeggio. So you could do this with major chords, minor chords, diminished chords, anything you like, in any key you like. You could use harmonic minor or melodic minor, anything like that. And also another thing to try out would be moving to different modes to ascend. So for example, if we went back to our B minor, if we went back here into Dorian instead of Phrygian, we could then, because we're ending on the 12th fret E string now, we could then descend into the A major shape. So we would get something like this. So you can then move through different chord progressions, basically. But that's a bit beyond the purpose of this video. This was just meant for the warm-up aspect. But feel free to try these out and see what you can come up with. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.